Now, you probably heard about the goings-on in Anambra State, where the opposition People's Democratic Party, or PDP, has held its primary for the governorship election. The event degenerated into squabbles after two candidates emerged from two separate factions of the PDP, each of which held their own primaries on Saturday. As temperatures rose, the PDP's National Working Committee was forced to set up an appeals panel to consider the protests and appeals arising from the conduct of that primary. Well, now we've spoken to the PDP today. Their national spokesman, Kola Olobondiyon, told us that the process has been resolved and that one candidate has been endorsed by the party as the person to represent the PDP as their flag bearer in the governorship election in Anambra State in November. Now, one of the candidates who emerged on Saturday was Valentine Ozigbo, former president of Transcorp Hilton Hotels, and he joins me now in the studio. Lovely to see you, and I can see that you've got something there. What is that?
I'm coming fresh from Wadata Plaza, where I picked up the certificate of return. This is the authenticity we're looking for. This actually means there was actually never two primaries. There was only one primary. This is it. Thank you.
And this is the one that the party has endorsed,
yes,
as the primary.
As the primary, and the only one also covered by INEC. And with these two institutions, that's it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. What you needed more than anything else was that document that you've got.
I hope my security is there to protect this. This is very important.
Well, I'm sure there's a replacement if it happens to get lost. But congratulations.
Thank you.
Obviously, there's still a process to go through because we spoke to INEC, and INEC says that what needs to happen now is that the PDP has to send it to them and say that this is who the candidate is, and then they will give their final endorsement.
Exactly.
But that's a procedural thing rather than anything else. Would you characterize the conduct of the PDP primary in Anambra State as a fraught one?
It's actually the best I've ever seen. It's actually the freest, the fairest, the
How could it
most
be free and fair when the whole thing was split into two different factions?
Hang on, please. I want to change this narrative. It's not the story. PDP had one primary, covered by the national body, covered by INEC, and we've all gathered, and all the leadership of the party were there. Peter B, the leader of the PDP in Anambra, was there, the BOT member. There's only one primary. Yes, there is a brother of mine, of ours, who had a court judgment and felt he could do something, but that can be considered as primary. What constitutes a primary is where you have the whole complement of the structure with you. So, you know, for me, let's go back to the primary. And this was chaired by the Edo State Deputy Governor with other members of the panel sent by the National Working Committee. And can you imagine where the result was declared? The winner emerged, and even some of the aspirants started clapping. That's how much free it was. It has never happened. For the first time, we have such a landmark, and that's why I must, you know, keep commending that deputy governor who has printed his name in gold because of the way they've conducted themselves. Everything from the accreditation to the voting to the sorting to the counting was done in the open glare of everybody. So honestly, I think we should be talking about the benchmark that has been set in Nigerian politics. That's the story we should be shaping. How did we achieve this? Given the conflicting court judgments, the PDP decided to honor the judgment by dissolving the executives and then sticking to the super delegate, the automatic delegates, and eventually all of this happened. And today, it has made our job easier. Job of uniting the party, getting everybody on board. Last night, I was here at the Transcorp Hilton, where we had a meeting of fellow aspirants and leaders of the party. A lot of them were represented. Even as I went to Wadata Plaza to pick the certificate of return, some of them followed me. It shows solidarity, and for me, it's amazing.
Nevertheless, there was an appeals panel set up,
of course,
because there were people who were aggrieved.
Just one appeal, one protest.
Yes, I was told by your party, the PDP, that there was just one one appeal against the process, and that obviously that was, if you like, swept away because, I mean, it didn't have the legs.
No merit.
Yeah,
No merit.
It didn't have the legs, basically.
Yeah.
Has there been any reaction from the other group that ran a different primary?
I wouldn't know. Maybe when you engage them, you find out. But, you know, for me, mine is always to build the bridges, you know, get people together and resolve issues. And that's why I'm choosing my words carefully. We need everybody to come on board. You know, I keep telling our people, party platform alone is not enough to win the general election. You need that together. And in addition, those other voters who may not be a member of any political party. And so our quest is, how do we win the main election? And the quicker we can get people who may have issues to come on board, the better. So if I use any particular kind of word to characterize them, it makes reconciliation difficult. And so what I tell people is, like what I was there on your studio was yesterday, and I said to, please bring PDP national body, bring INEC, and figure out exactly what happened so you get the clearer picture. Otherwise, if you keep giving airtime to whom is not deserving, you keep getting conflicting messages and confusing the public. So PDP is one family. We've got, you know, one structure, one, you know, primary, and one candidate. And by the grace of God, I am the one.
Okay, well, I mean, clearly, as I said, we said there, I mean, you've got the certificate. So what happens now? I mean, it goes from the PDP to INEC,
yes.
is it?
So obviously, the next step one has to take is to nominate who is going to be my deputy and file these entries in INEC, and ultimately wait for dates for substitutions and before the window for a campaign will begin. So in the interim, we can be doing a quiet consultation, but the real campaign will start sometime in August in line with the calendar that's been set by INEC.
So that there's a lot of horse trading going on now, people sort of besieging you with all kinds.
It is unbelievable, but you know, it's a good thing. It's always good to be on the winning side. But you know, what I also tell my people, we're not celebrating. This is really not about a win yet. Primary is just about 10-20% of the process. We've had, you know, candidates of PDP in the past 3 elections, and this is the 4th one, without a win. So how do we win this time around? That's really the burden that I carry now. How do we get everybody galvanized? How do we get the people at the grassroots to be, you know, enthusiastic of the process and what the outcome will become? How do they, you know, show, you know, that love for what we're doing and the hope that they feel for the future of Anambra State? And that's what we need to be doing now. Making sure we align our structure, campaign structure, making sure the right messaging is being passed, and also getting ready for the day one. I want to hit the ground running. If and when I become the governor, I'm not going to wait for 6 months to appoint my commissioners. I'm going to wait a few hours to...
Ouch. But I mean, we're going to get to the election proper in a moment, but why is it that elections in Nigeria, whether they are conducted by the parties as primaries or by INEC as ballots, always seem to end up disputatiously?
Quite frankly, if you ever want to succeed in recruitment process in politics, there are 3 things I always want to advocate if you want to get it right. Number 1 is the process. The process must not only be free and fair, must be seen to be free and fair. That's the only way a winner will emerge and the losers will join the winner in battle. It is by far the most important issue. And I tell people, if you are appointed on an electoral panel, do the right thing. Don't bother trying to, you know, favor, get biased, and in some cases get corrupted by people who are running for election. I tell people, once you get this right, if you go to Anambra today, PDP is the only party that was able to do a free and fair primary. In fact, if you go to ABGA, for instance, they started disqualifying other major contenders because they wanted to have somebody emerge without primary. And they went on to do things not in line with INEC because they're looking for how to circumvent the process. And they may even land themselves in trouble. Trouble of not even having a candidate. But that's between them and INEC. If you go to ABC, no primary happened. If you go, they just moved on. So process must be free and fair. Number two, we must also look at the conduct of the aspirants. I tell people, gone are those days where all you know is blackmailing, backbiting, insulting. No, it's not important. Talk about what you're going to do for the people. If you want me to enumerate what my plans are for, that's what I want to rather talk about. Not that this person is not from there, this person beats his wife, this person, those personal issues are irrelevant. Of course, we need to do character check on people. So the conduct of the aspirant themselves critical, because a lot of them burn bridges in the process of electioneering and difficult to then unite. So how do you want me to come to you when you have so insulted my mother, my wife, my everybody? And that is the problem a lot of them make. And then finally is the leadership. If you have discordant tones at the leadership level, you can't unite the body. And this is why when I started this project, I went to every single one of our leaders and I said to them, I want us to build consensus because I want to be a consensus candidate, not a factional or a candidate of this leader versus that leader. And this is actually the only reason. These three things are the reasons that God blessed me with this win. Because if you do this, if you're not the first choice of that leader, you probably may end up being second choice. And it's okay. You never know. The first choice may drop off or somebody may oppose so voraciously that first choice. You become the favored choice. People didn't give me much chance, but I knew the masses were with me. So when the support kept resonating, I knew I was on my way to victory.
Okay. Well, please stay with us because we want to talk with you a bit more. You're watching the Arise interview. Plenty more still ahead as we continue our chat with Valentine Ozigbo, who, according to the PDP, has emerged as the party's flag bearer in the upcoming Anambra state governorship election in November. Stay with us. Welcome back to the Arise interview. I'm Charles Aniagolu, and my first guest today is Valentine Ozigbo, who, according to PDP executives in Abuja, has emerged as the governorship candidate for the party in the upcoming election in Anambra State in November. Mr. Ozigbo is a well-known politician and business executive. He is the immediate past president and chief executive officer of Transcorp Hilton Hotels and the conglomerate, and before that he worked in the banking sector over a 17-year period and across 8 banks in Nigeria. He says he wants to apply all that experience to running Anambra State if he wins the governorship election in November. And Valentine Ozigbo is still with me in the studio. Thank you very much indeed for staying with us.
Thank you, Charles.
So you've passed the first major hurdle, which is getting your certification as the candidate for the People's Democratic Party. The main event, of course, in November. How do you rate your chances at that election?
Very high. I believe this is our election to win or to lose for a number of reasons. PDP clearly is by far more favored. I believe the incumbent ABGA has outlived, honestly, their usefulness in Anambra State. It rode on the back of Ikemba, Ojukwu, and gained prominence. They had a fantastic governor by way of Peter being His Excellency, and he did an amazing job of governing Anambra for 8 years, and the records are there, what he did in infrastructure, in human capacity indices, and all of that. He handed over to the current governor, who I believe has taken Anambra backwards, and there are all manner of aggravations, issues, which I don't want to get into at this point. But the point here is the tempo is very low, the momentum is very low, especially on the side of ABGA. And part of it is also the process they usually undergo for the electioneering process. If you go back to last election, it was a total mess. If you if you had to sit here with some people who were part of that process, at a point they actually formed what they had called a Association of Aggrieved APGA Aspirants, and there were tons of them, and it's formidable. And today again, they are going through another primary process, which obviously has taken away whatever they had left behind. What I'm saying to you, by what platform, PDP is far better, because today, that same person who did the magic in APGA is the leader of PDP in Anambra State as P2B. And in addition to other leadership, you have better leadership. And that's why we're able to come out from an unknown space in politics. And I was able to go campaign, visited all the 21 local governments 7 times, and talking to them about who I am, what I mean for Anambra, how I'm going to govern, and hearing from them what they want from the next governor. And in order to articulate a blueprint and share this with them, and they bought into it, that vision is what's driving us. That's the momentum we have. So I knew that our chances of winning the primary was very high. The same way I know that the chances of winning the main election is also going to be very high. So it's our election to win. Now, if you come to the candidates, I believe I would rather have somebody else analyzing us, because it's going to be my words against theirs.
Well, I mean, it sounds, just listening to you, as though you're focusing on APGA. I mean, you didn't mention the APC at all.
Because
you don't think of them as a challenge.
It's not marketable in Anambra State for now. It's almost like they don't exist.
Well, they would say that that's your opinion.
And
that you would say that,
obviously. You know, yeah. The point here is if you actually engage APC members, they will tell you what they're fighting for is to write the election. But we're not going to let them write the election, because people's will matter.
Well, they would say that's an unfounded allegation. But I mean, let's look at APGA then. I mean, assuming that is the one that you see as your real challenge. Obviously, I'm not saying that. I'm simply quoting you, because all the parties are supposed to have an equal shot.
Clearly, they're the challenge, because they're the incumbents.
Yeah, but I mean, Charles Soludo is the candidate for APGA. I mean, he's a pretty formidable guy, isn't he?
He is, but you know what? We have a far more formidable guy in me than him. But when the time for campaign is there, because I don't want to be seen as campaigning, sure. But I have to say this, there are basically nothing that he could brag about that I don't have, by the grace of God. And I can point to a number of things I have he can't afford, especially my youthful energy. I'm younger and more digital, I'm more modern.
So you think he's analog and you're digital?
That's your word.
Well, I'm simply here to ask the questions. I don't authenticate. I mean, so Charles Soludo has an equal chance. I mean, we're more than happy to have him, and we are. I mean, he was on the morning show anyway.
At that point, we'll be on a debate, so you can have a feel of us.
Okay, well, let's move away from the issues around that particular election that hasn't taken place, as you said. You don't want to be seen as though you're campaigning, but you did say that one of the big issues that you would focus on is security.
Yes.
And we know that in the last 24 hours or so, Nnamdi Kanu, who is the leader of the separatist group IPOB, has been rearrested by the Nigerian authorities. What's your reaction to his arrest?
I'll speak on 2 fronts. One, the importance of security and governance. In fact, when I did visit the entire 21 local governments, one of the questions I ask is, what do you want from your next governor? What ranks high in the order of priority? And shockingly, well, not shockingly, security and road are usually the 2 major. So, especially for us who are known as business people, in the face of insecurity, you can move around. You can't do your shopping. You can't do your trading. You can't do your nothing. So security is that important. And you know, I remember being on this studio talking about regional security, especially when the Southeast leaders were, coming up with a structure to help to strengthen the architecture in the Southeast. So security is that important. And for the arrest of Nnamdi Kanu, all I can call is calm. Let's make sure we manage 360 degrees. Let's make sure we assuage the concerns and fears of the faithful while going through the process of law. Obviously, if he's found to be wanting, let him go through the process. But in doing this, we should be mindful of the reactions coming from the people. What is the reason for the agitation? What can be done about that agitation? How do we become true leaders in our various space? Because if you do things in some cases haphazardly and you don't look at the whole 360 degrees, the impact, the implications, then you may try to solve one problem, you create multiple problems. So I want to say that what we've seen so far is unprecedented in the area of insecurity, and I need us to remain calm. All these guys doing this, obviously doing this out of joblessness and lack of economic empowerment, and because we've also failed in governance and leadership, both at the center and at the state level. How do we correct these issues, both in the short and in the long run? And this is why I am coming into this space. How do we bring that imagination, creativity, solutions that we've practiced in the private sector, in the public space? And by the grace of God, my era as governor of Anambra State will bring these things to the barest minimum.
Okay, we've got about 30 seconds or so before we have to go. What's the mood in Anambra State with regard to his arrest? In 20 seconds.
I would say that apprehension. There's some people who are wondering what next. Are we safe? And some saying, well, I guess, at the end of the day, the law will take its course. And so apprehension, obviously people are not too excited and they're not, too moody.
Right.
But the point here is, what next? We're waiting to see. And I like to say the security forces should please keep everything calm.
Okay. Valentine Ozigbo, who we can now say is the PDP candidate for the governorship election in Anambra State. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you, Charles.